to What Do You Want to Do, the show that will hopefully help you figure out what you want to do in life or reconnect you to what you love doing. Each show has a guest who is doing what they want to do, whether it's in their career or in addition to their regular job. Most importantly, we want to help you realize that no matter your age, you too can do what you want to do if you have the will to do it. Now here's your host, Leonard Kaplan.
Welcome to part 3 of my interview with Phil Weinstein. And again, we talk about a whole bunch of stuff here, including the Beatles. Stay tuned for that. Let's see if you get this reference. You and I are two Walt Disneys, and we each of us need a Roy Disney with us.
We do. We need Roy. We need our brother. That's sort of like the that will be the friendliness of it all and just carry it through. I 100% understand that reference.
These financial people are wizards. Wizards.
Do you watch any of the Disney Plus behind the scenes Disney stuff or any of the old animation? I just got Disney Plus. Guess why? Because I am the biggest Beatle maniac of all. Oh, what have you watched it yet?
I have watched the whole series.
I could watch something like that for almost every album that they ever recorded.
Yeah.
I love how that's another example, and this is something that maybe we could do in a class at some point, but to show how strong editing could be by showing the production that Michael Lindsay put together in the Let It Be movie compared to the actual footage. It's like, and again, to compare it to a reality show that you probably wouldn't even care about, like something like Big Brother, that they have these live cams that are just live cams that you can watch online, which is just the live footage of what's happening. And then you get the edited together product, which pushes random narratives that if you're watching the live cams, you're like, that wasn't a narrative. And I think that, yes, were they arguing? Did they have some problems? But it was so emotional to watch that. The hardest scene in the entire thing, and I don't want to go scene by scene here because I could talk about this for another hour, was at the end, after they did the live show, when you see them all in the room together, like hovering over it, listening to the live recording, they did not seem like a band that was about to break up. More than ever, I'm convinced that what did it was Alan Klein, and the whole thing with Alan Klein and his dad. It wasn't because they might have taken a break. They might have ended up like the Wu-Tang Clan and released a George Harrison album and a Paul McCartney album and a Lennon album, all and a Ringo album, all under Apple, and then come back together for the Beatles Forever album. And I agree. And I think they would have gone that direction. They might have taken a hiatus for a few years, but I think they would have always played together if it wasn't for the Alan Klein stuff.
I totally agree with that. And it wasn't Yoko. And it just, she was just a minor distraction.
They jammed with her. He was a minor distraction. They seemed like they let her jam together. Her and Linda seemed to be friendly. You know, that was one of the weird scenes too, where you're just like Linda and Yoko are like hugging and it's like, oh, that's not what I've heard. That's not.
You're absolutely correct when you say that it's all in the editing, because you're right about Michael Lindsay Hogg. He had that agenda that he wanted to show all the bad stuff, and that has been our narrative for 2 decades or more,
especially with John and Paul, where you get the feeling even in that yes, George had his issues at that point in time because he had a mountain of amazing material that eventually was the All Things Past album that he just like had to do. He had like a big musical thing he had to lay, and he just couldn't do it. He felt so frustrated by it. Lennon and McCartney come, and he was more sensitive than the other two. Lennon and McCartney, you learn real quick that you could edit their stuff to sound away, but they were so good friends, and everyone has a friend like this, or if you're lucky, you've had a friend like this, that you can say, you're stupid. Like, you're an idiot. What are you doing? That's horrible. Like, get your bleep together. It's like when you watch Siskel and Ebert work together in Outtakes. Like, you dummy, get it right. You dummy, get it right. Like, and he can say it, and they still love each other. Or Michael Wilbon and Tony Kornheiser on PTI have that kind of relationship. Like, very few reviewers and people that are teammates have that kind of relationship. But like, it's hard to find, and it's hard to not piss. But you get the feeling they could have said anything to each other, and neither one of them was going to be too angry at the other one. It was like, no, what you're doing is shite, and la 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 la. It's they could just do that, and that's what's beautiful about their relationship. But Michael Lindsay could edit that in a way to make it seem like they got into that fight the first day, and John doesn't care. a good example of that is when George comes in and plays I Me Mine, and John calls it like the greatest song he likes, is one of his favorite songs, and him and Yoko start dancing.
Yeah.
In the movie, they edited it in a way to make it seem like John's ignoring the song and just dancing with
making
Yoko.
fun of it. Yeah.
Making fun of it, being like, "Oh, I mean mine. This is stupid." But when you hear him, like, John was the biggest, way more than Paul. I love Paul, but Paul made me say to myself that we've all worked with a guy like Paul, and I could see why they all got kind of like they needed a manager too. They needed to replace Brian. That was the other thing.
Mm-hmm.
They needed to replace Brian Epstein, and they didn't get the right guy to do it. Obviously, what happened to Brian Epstein, that probably would have changed the course of the Beatles too. But Paul was too control freak to be that guy, and they all sort of could deal with that, and especially George. George was too much for George.
Without Paul doing that, though, there would be probably 3 or 4 albums missing right now.
100%. You wouldn't have had Magical Mystery Tour.
Right.
You probably wouldn't have had Let It Be, and you wouldn't have had half of Abbey Road.
Right. I agree.
As they had in that lunchroom discussion, which was probably the best, most inside discussion you see in the entire documentary, when there was a hidden microphone there, and John and Paul are having the off-the-cuff discussion over lunch. And John, it's the first time I've heard them verbalize it, and it's something I've always thought, and it was so great to hear them say that, where Paul is basically saying, "John, forever you've been the one." Sorry, the bad Paul expression. "John, forever when you were the leader of the band, it was your band. You were the guy." And John said, "I don't want that anymore. I didn't want that anymore. You took over." Basically, that's the discussion. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but it was in John saying, "And I don't mind. You want to do this, and I'm happy to be here." And he is, and that's the thing. Like when George leaves, I don't think John, if it wasn't for some of the financial aspects and that kind of stuff, I don't think John ever would have left Paul. And I don't think Yoko was pushing him to do that either. I think he loved having someone that was, and I'm putting air quotes up for anyone that might be listening to this, because this isn't about who the better Beatle is or who's the more talented person. I think John always viewed Paul as someone better than he is, and someone that's always pushing him. And
he needed that.
He needed that. And you see that in another great documentary I highly recommend watching if people haven't done it yet, is the making of the Imagine album, which it's a documentary of John Lennon. It's almost his part of the anthology.
I did see that. George is in that.
George, doing How Can You Sleep?
Yeah.
And there's also a part where a guy shows up at the door to that's like a homeless guy, and John like rips him apart and then invites him in for supper. But there's a point where John is singing "Oh Yoko," and he's trying to record the backup vocals with somebody and like harmonize "Oh Yoko" with them. And the guy's sharp singing backup vocals with him, and it's screwing John up. John gets pissed in a way I've never seen him pissed anywhere before. And that's because, you know why? His whole gosh dang life, in musical life, he's had Paul McCartney to back up vocalize him and make his voice sound incredibly amazing. And you could see the look in his face like, just do it like Paul, damn it. Just do it like Paul.
That's interesting. I'd have to see that part again.
Yeah, it's during and I honestly think the guy singing backup vocals with him is one of the more horrible people in the world, with the last name Spector, but we don't need to go down that road to talk about that.
No. Anyway, now let's wrap this up with you giving advice to anybody who has a dream, like to do something in the arts, to do something creative, to do something that they always wanted to do. What should they do? What would you say?
My biggest advice is something that I see stop people from doing it so much. It's in myself sometimes too. Don't overthink it. You can always get better. You can always work at it. And I'm not saying not to put the time and the effort in, but if you have something you've always wanted to try, whether it be stand-up comedy, playing an instrument, doing a podcast, doing some live streaming, going down to your local cable club, getting a camera, checking out a camera and making a little mini movie, doing whatever you want to do not hesitate because you want to make it perfect. Do not be Chinese democracy. And you can do the research if you want to know what that means. But like, you can't overanalyze things to death like that. Sometimes the best stuff is raw emotion that comes off. So, and I understand the intensity or the stressors can cause you stress to not want to even try, to not want to even fail. It's the same reason why someone has trouble asking someone they like out sometimes. It's like, I don't want to put myself on that level. But what's great about entertaining or performing, you don't have to necessarily do it for anybody else. Do it for yourself. Do it for your friends. Do it for your family. Just do it alone in a room for yourself and create. the worst thing I can say is don't hesitate on it. Don't worry too much about perfection. Perfection is unattainable. What is attainable is trying. I feel like I'm a Jedi right now. Just try, just do, don't try. But that's basically the best advice I can give. Don't overthink it, because sometimes the best things can be by accident.
Fantastic advice, Phil. Very profound. And thank you for coming on the show. It's been great. I think I can squeeze 3 shows out of this.
Oh, awesome.
This is great. So thanks again. And for all of you, join us again next time and think about it. What do you want to do?